friends! Today I am back with one of my favorite side dishes to a home meal, and that is my dad's sauteed potatoes. Now I call it my dad's because this is usually the dish he makes for me whenever I visit home, and he makes congee. And he hand cuts the potato into thin little strands, and he puts in so much time and a lot of love. And of course, as usual, I will be sharing with you techniques I learned from my mom on how to elevate this home dish into something that's of restaurant quality. And without further ado, I cannot wait to make this dish with you, and I really hope you will give it a try. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is to peel our potatoes. As you know, potatoes come in all different kinds of varieties, and a lot of the times when you saute potato strings, if it's the too mushy kind, then it will get clumpy. But the beauty of this recipe is that my mom has a technique that works virtually on all kinds of potatoes. So you don't have to worry about buying a specific kind. One thing I will say though is I always buy the larger potatoes, just so that you can have nice long strands, and it's also much easier to cut. Before we get started, I will walk you through with all the ingredients you will need. So aside from the potato, you will also need 1 green scallion. You will need some whole black peppercorn. If you like that numbing flavor, you can also get the prickly ash that you can find in Chinese hot pot. Some sesame oil, some salt, some 5 spice. This is optional. Again, if you like something more strongly flavored, highly recommend this. And either one of the vinegars. So I have both rice vinegar and balsamic vinegar. Either or is completely fine. Like I said, my dad would hand cut this with those Chinese cleavers. I usually, for the sake of time, like to use a mandolin. Okay, so this is the thickness we're looking for. If you find that your potato is too large, I would recommend just cutting off the sides a little bit. And you don't have to put this into the waste or anything. We will use that later on. Yeah, that's much better. So one very important thing to this dish is texture. If the strands are different thickness, then they will cook unevenly, and that would really affect the texture of this dish. Once you finish one, stack them together into maybe 5-6 layers so that it's easy for cutting later on. So these ones, I accidentally cut them way too thin, so we're going to keep that on the side. These are a much better thickness. Okay, now you will take your stacked slices and cut them into thin, even shreds. Now we are going to fill up a bowl with cold water. We do this for 2 reasons. One, it prevents the potato from turning brown, and the second is to wash out some of the starch so that they will stay distinctively separate afterwards. Of course, if you have a mandolin with the shredding blade, feel free to use that as well. We are going to prepare a pot of cold water and leave it on the stove. It's really important that you have enough cold water to cover the potato strands fully. Now our potatoes all cut, we're going to take a look at how the water is a little bit mucky, and that's because of the starch that's coming out of the potato strands. And we're going to rinse this until the water is clear. Now if you take a look at the water, it is all clear, and that took about 3 rinses. And we're going to add this along with the water into the pot we had prepared earlier. In it goes. And just as before, you want to make sure that the water covers the potato. And we're going to turn our heat on high. So our goal isn't actually to boil them. We want the water to just be hot enough to slightly cook these so that they turn translucent. And we do this because the aggressive motion of sauteing it will end up breaking the potato strands. It's really important to cook potatoes from cold because potatoes tend to have the tendency to cook unevenly. If you throw it into hot water, the outside will be cooked and the inside wouldn't. Now I can see some vapor coming up. I'm just going to keep an eye on this while cutting my green onions. And then cut diagonally along the whole length. Okay, we can see micro bubbles forming, and if you take a look at the potatoes right now, they are half translucent. And I'm just going to strain out my cooked potato strands. I want to make sure that I rinse really properly all of the strands. This does two things. This will effectively cool the potatoes and stop it from cooking, as well as wash away any remaining starch that's stuck on the outside of the strand. Okay. You can see that the strands are beautifully separated. I'm just going to let this sit on the bottom container for a little bit. I'm using a steamer pot, but I find it to be such a practical tool to use to strain. Okay, I'm going to use a cast iron non-stick pan. You are free to use a wok, a normal cast iron pan, a normal. I'm going to turn the heat on high and add in a little bit of cooking oil. And to the cooking oil, I'm going to add a little bit of my dad's homemade chili paste. But you definitely can use any chili just raw and cut up into thin slices. Or you can even use a little bit of the prickly ash, which is what my mom does. So I'm going to very gently baste out some of the flavors. To that, we're going to add in our green onions. Look at this beautiful color. Now at this point, I'm going to actually be careful on not burning it by turning down the heat to a medium-high. With this dish, you really need two hands. So take a spatula and we are going to repeat this flipping motion until it's all cooked. We've introduced some water into the pan because of the potato. The risk of burning is no longer there. So I'm going to turn it back onto a high. So as the potato cooks, it's going to lose some volume, and this is when we want to start seasoning. It's a relatively simple dish in terms of seasoning, mostly just salt and pepper. As usual, the ingredient amount is in the description box. I'm cracking in some black pepper. I'm also going to adding a few shakes of the spice for extra flavor. Okay, now we are going to saute it once again. You can hear that the water is mostly gone from the bottom. Okay, the last step is a small drizzle of sesame oil and a touch of vinegar to finish. The vinegar really adds depth to the potato, and we add it at the end so that the heat doesn't make it evaporate. It's important not to saute your potatoes for too long, otherwise the strands will start breaking. Alright. Delicious. And that is it. I hope you will give this recipe a try and let me know what you think.